Welcome back to the deep dive. Usually when we sit down to tackle a topic, we're looking at something pretty specific.
Right.
Like a new technology or a historical event, maybe a trend in business. We peel back the layers, we find the nugget of truth, and we move on. But today feels a little different
It really does.
because we are looking at a stack of documents that doesn't just describe a trend, it describes a fundamental restructuring of the world we live in.
Yeah, and I think for a lot of people, the term restructuring sounds really abstract.
Right, like corporate jargon.
Exactly. It sounds like something that happens in boardrooms and doesn't actually affect them. But the material we have today, which is centered around the work of Catherine Austin Fitts, it suggests that this restructuring is highly personal.
Very personal.
It's physical.
Yeah.
And it is happening right now, all around us.
So we are talking about what Fitts calls the digital control grid.
Yeah.
And I want to be really careful with how we frame this right out of the gate.
Good idea.
Because when you hear phrases like control grid or digital slavery, it's very easy to just dismiss that as hyperbole.
Oh, absolutely. It sounds like the plot of a dystopian sci-fi novel.
Right. But Fitts isn't a sci-fi writer. She isn't a YouTuber broadcasting from a bunker somewhere.
No, she is very much a creature of the system she's actually critiquing.
Which makes her perspective so fascinating.
For those who aren't familiar with her background, she served as the Assistant Secretary of Housing.
And Federal Housing Commissioner.
Right, during the first Bush administration. She's also been a managing director at Dillon Read, which is a major investment bank. She publishes the Solari report. I mean, she understands the plumbing of the global financial system better than almost anyone.
And that's exactly why this deep dive is so critical. She isn't looking at this from the outside in.
No.
She's looking at it from the perspective of a former insider who knows exactly how the ledger works. And her argument is that we are in a transition period.
A massive one.
We are moving from a system of law and democracy to a system of transaction and control.
That is the core thesis. She argues we are witnessing the installation of a digital slavery system. And she uses that word slavery very deliberately.
She doesn't mean it metaphorically.
Not at all. She means a system where your labor, your assets, and your physical body are harvested for value, and your ability to say no is technologically removed from the equation.
So the mechanism isn't a whip anymore.
No, it's a ledger.
It's a ledger, a camera, and a line of code all working in unison.
Exactly.
So our mission today is to take this apart. We need to understand the actual mechanics of this grid.
Right, how it functions in reality.
Fitts breaks it down into three specific pillars. You have the hardware, the digital ID, and the big one, programmable money.
Programmable money is the keystone.
We're going to look at how these three things combine to create a prison without walls. And then we really have to ask the question that just kept nagging me as I read through all this source material.
The why.
Why? Why would the global leadership, the so-called elites, want to build this? Is it just greed? Or is it something darker, like fear?
I think the answer to that why is honestly the most disturbing part of the whole analysis. But to get there, we really have to understand the what first.
Right. Let's start with some definitions. When Fitts says control grid, what is she actually describing? I mean, is it just surveillance?
It definitely includes surveillance, but it goes way beyond just watching you.
Okay.
In the simplest terms, the control grid is an infrastructure. It's a convergence of digital technology, financial systems, and local physical hardware.
Meaning things you can touch.
Exactly. The goal of this infrastructure is to allow for total situational awareness of a population.
Knowing where everyone is.
Where everyone is, what they're doing, who they are talking to, and crucially, the ability to exert physical control over them remotely.
Physical control, that's the real differentiator here.
She uses the analogy of the panopticon.
Oh, from philosophy class.
Right, the 18th century prison design. The cells are arranged in a circle around a central guard tower.
And the prisoners can't see into the tower?
Exactly, so they never know if they're actually being watched at any given moment. But the guard could be watching.
So the prisoner eventually just creates a mental prison. They police themselves because the threat of observation is constant.
That's the psychological mechanism. But Fitts argues the digital control grid takes the panopticon and weaponizes it.
How so?
It's not just that they can see you, it's that they can turn you off.
Turn you off.
If you step out of line, the system can instantly punish you financially or physically without a human guard ever needing to intervene.
Okay, let's get into the nuts and bolts of how that actually happens. She identifies three pillars that make this possible. Pillar one is the local hardware and infrastructure.
The physical layer.
Now, We see cameras everywhere. I think most people listening have accepted that if you walk down a city street, you're on camera.
Right, it's just part of modern life.
But Fitz points to specific technologies that are completely changing the game. She talks a lot about flock cameras.
Yes. And this is a really great example of how the grid just snaps into place quietly, almost invisibly.
What are they exactly?
Flock Safety is a company that creates license plate reading cameras. You've probably seen them without even realizing it.
What do they look like?
They look like small, solar-powered boxes on poles, usually at the entrances to neighborhoods or subdivisions.
Oh, I have seen those.
Right. And they are often sold to homeowners associations or local police departments as a crime-fighting tool.
Catch the car thieves.
Exactly. Which sounds totally reasonable.
Sure, nobody wants their car stolen.
Of course not. But Fitz points out the network effect here. These aren't just isolated cameras recording to a local tape loop in a guard shack.
They're connected.
They are networked. They feed data into a massive centralized system. They are building a permanent, searchable log of movement.
So it's not just, did a crime happen?
No, it's where was this specific car at 8 a.m.? Where was it at 8 p.m.?
Wow.
It creates a pattern of life. If you leave your house at 10 p.m. on a Tuesday, and you usually don't, that's an anomaly. The system logs it.
And because these are popping up in suburbs and rural areas, not just downtown city centers, the net is just tightening everywhere.
And you are paying taxes to build the infrastructure that tracks you.
She also mentions satellites in this section. This felt like the nowhere-to-hide aspect of the whole thing.
It absolutely is. She notes that modern satellite constellations are increasingly capable of beaming Wi-Fi and tracking signals down to very specific locations on Earth.
So you can't just unplug your router.
The implication is that you cannot opt out simply by disconnecting your home internet or moving to the woods. The signal is coming from above.
They can essentially paint a location with coverage.
Yes, and track devices even if the user thinks they're completely off the grid.
And then there's 5G. Now, I have to play devil's advocate here for a second.
Go for it.
Every time 5G comes up, the tech industry just says, oh, it's just speed, it's just bandwidth, so you can download a movie in 4 seconds instead of 4 minutes.
Right, the consumer benefit.
But Fitz argues there is a surveillance capability inherent in the technology itself.
It really comes down to physics. 5G, specifically the high-band millimeter wave versions of it, requires a very dense network of towers.
Because the signals don't travel as far as 4G.
Exactly. The waves are shorter. So the FCC and telecom companies are actively overruling local municipalities to place small cell towers everywhere.
How close together are we talking?
Every 400 to 700 feet.
That's incredibly dense. That's practically one on every single block.
It is. And while that provides incredible download speeds, Fitz argues that from a control perspective, it provides resolution.
Resolution, meaning accuracy.
Right. In a 4G world, the cell tower knows you are in a general sector, maybe within a mile or two.
Okay.
In a 5G world, with antennas every 400 feet, the system can triangulate your exact position with sub-meter accuracy.
So they don't just know you're in the neighborhood.
They know you're in your living room. They know you moved from the living room to the kitchen.
And this leads to what she calls spatial control.
Yes. This is a major theme in this Solari report. It's the ability to geofence a human being.
To draw a digital line on a map and actually enforce it.
Precisely.
This is where the whole kill switch conversation comes in, right?
Yes. She highlights the legislative fight that's been led by Congressman Thomas Massey.
What's happening there?
There is a serious push to mandate kill switches in all new vehicles. The stated reason, again, is safety.
Stopping drunk drivers, preventing high-speed chases.
Right. It's always framed as a benefit. But Fitz points out that once the capability exists to remotely shut down a car, it instantly becomes a tool for geofencing.
And this connects directly to the 15-minute city concept.
Which is almost always marketed as a convenience. You know, everything you need is within a 15-minute walk or bike ride.
Sounds idyllic on paper.
It does. But Fitz warns that in a control grid, the 15-minute city becomes a confinement zone.
A prison cell.
If the grid decides you are not allowed to travel more than 5 miles from your home, maybe due to a climate lockdown or a new pandemic measure or whatever the policy is,
your car simply won't work past that invisible boundary.
the hardware enforces the policy automatically. There's no police officer to argue with. There's no barricade to drive around. The car just stops.
That is a genuinely terrifying thought.
It changes the relationship between the citizen and the state entirely.
Okay, so that's the cage. Pillar 1 is the cage.
Right.
Pillar 2 is the tag, the digital ID.
The identification layer. Because for the system to work, it needs to know exactly who it is tracking.
You can't control a population if they are anonymous.
Exactly. Fitz mentions that she's been traveling internationally quite a bit recently, and she is seeing biometrics being rolled out aggressively everywhere she goes.
It's true. I mean, you see clear at the airport, facial recognition at customs, fingerprints at the border.
And she really emphasizes the concept of interoperability here.
What does that mean in this context?
It's not enough for the U.S. to have a facial recognition database and France to have their own database.
They need to talk to each other.
They are building a global standard. These systems are being designed to communicate seamlessly across borders.
So if you are flagged in one system, you are flagged in all of them.
There's no escaping to a new jurisdiction.
She told a story in the source material about Walmart that really brought this home for me. It was about the illusion of being analog.
Yes, this was a striking example. She describes people who think they're cleverly opting out of the system.
Right, they leave their smartphone in the car.
They walk into a big box store like Walmart. They gather their items, they go to the register, and they pay with physical cash.
And they think, I am a ghost. The system doesn't know I'm here.
They think they beat it.
But they're wrong.
Completely wrong. They get back to their car, they pick up their phone, and waiting for them is a text message from the manufacturer of the exact item they just bought with cash.
Asking for a review or something? How does that even happen? How does the text message get to the phone if they paid with a $20 bill?
Biometrics. The high-definition cameras in the store scanned their face the moment they walked in or while they were standing at the checkout.
And the system matched the face to their digital ID profile.
Exactly. The facial profile is already linked in a database to their phone number, probably their car's registration from the parking lot cameras.
It just connects the dots.
The system connected the anonymous cash purchase to their digital identity almost instantly.
So your face is the barcode.
Your face is the barcode. You can't leave your face in the car.
Which means you are never truly offline.
Not in public, no.
Okay. We have the hardware, which is the cage. We have the ID, which is the tag. Now we need the leash.
Pillar 3.
And Fitz says this is the most critical part of the entire apparatus. Programmable money.
This is the enforcement mechanism. Without this, the other pillars are really just advanced surveillance.
Right. They can watch you, but they can't stop you.
With programmable money, it becomes total, inescapable control.
I really want to spend some time here because I think there is a lot of confusion about what programmable money actually means for the average person.
There is a massive misconception.
Because, look, I use Apple Pay. I use a debit card. I transfer money on apps. That's all digital money. How is what she's describing any different from what we use today?
That is the crucial distinction you have to make. What we use today is digital banking.
Okay.
The money itself, the dollar sitting in your checking account, is still fundamentally a currency. It is a store of value and a medium of exchange.
It's neutral.
Exactly, it's neutral. If you have $50 in your account, you can buy $50 worth of gas or steak or cigarettes, or you can donate it to a local charity.
The bank records the transaction, but they don't block it.
The money doesn't have an opinion on what you are buying.
It doesn't say no.
Right. Programmable money, and here we are specifically talking about central bank digital currencies, or CBDCs, is fundamentally different.
Because it's code.
It is not just a digital token representing a dollar. It is executable code. It comes with rules baked directly into the token itself.
Rules. Give me an example of a rule. What does that actually look like at the checkout counter?
Fitz gives several scenarios. The most obvious one is permissions. The issuer of the money, meaning the central bank, can decide what that specific token can be spent on.
So imagine you go to the gas station.
You go to the gas station, you have money in your digital wallet, you tap your phone to pay.
And the transaction is declined.
Declined.
But not for insufficient funds.
No. The error message might say carbon limit exceeded.
Wow.
The money knows that you have already purchased your designated allotment of fossil fuels for the month. It physically refuses to settle the transaction.
What about food? Could they do this with food?
She mentions that specifically. If the prevailing government policy is to reduce meat consumption to meet climate goals, the money could be programmed to only work for plant-based proteins.
Or insect-based alternatives.
Right. If you try to buy a steak from a local rancher, the transaction fails. The money won't transfer.
So it's essentially a permission slip.
It is a dynamic permission slip system. And it can be tied to anything. Medical mandates are a big one she brings up.
Like vaccines.
If you haven't received a required booster shot, your wallet could be restricted. You might not be able to buy travel tickets or enter public venues or travel beyond your 15-minute zone
The money just freezes.
until you comply.
This leads to what she calls the coup. And this gets a bit technical, but it's essentially about the structure of our government. She argues this destroys the separation of powers.
Yes, and this is the constitutional crisis hidden inside the code. In the American system, we have a very strict separation between monetary policy and fiscal policy.
Let's break that down for the listener who maybe hasn't taken a civics class in a while.
Sure. Monetary policy is the domain of the central bank, the Federal Reserve.
Right.
They manage the money supply. They set interest rates. They basically handle the plumbing of the economy. They're unelected bankers.
Okay, and fiscal policy.
Fiscal policy is taxes and spending.
Mm-hmm.
That is the exclusive domain of Congress, the legislature, the people we actually vote for.
Right. No taxation without representation. If they want to take my money, they have to pass a law, debate it in public, and I have to be able to vote them out if I don't like it.
Exactly. That is the fundamental check on government power. But Fitz argues that programmable money collapses that separation completely.
How?
If the central bank can program the money to automatically deduct taxes from your wallet, say, they institute a negative interest rate to force you to spend money to stimulate the economy.
You just drain it directly from the wallet.
Right. If they can do that, they are conducting fiscal policy.
They're taxing you.
They are taxing you. If they can fine you automatically for behavior or restrict what you can buy, they're essentially passing laws.
But they're doing it via algorithm.
Bypassing the legislature entirely.
So Congress becomes what? Yeah.
Fitz calls them show and tell bodies.
Yeah.
They become completely irrelevant.
Just a theater piece.
The real power shifts entirely to the bankers and technologists who control the code. It is the end of representative democracy as a functional system.
Now, I know what some of our listeners are thinking right now.
What's that?
They're saying, well, I just won't use the Fed's coin. I'll use crypto. I'll use stable coins. That's the free market solution to all of this.
And here is where Fitz drops a piece of analysis that might really upset the crypto community.
She goes after stable coins.
She argues that stablecoins are a trap.
A trap. But they're private. They aren't issued by the government.
In name, yes. But you have to look at the underlying structure. A stablecoin is a crypto token pegged to the value of the dollar.
Right, so it doesn't fluctuate wildly like Bitcoin.
Exactly. To maintain that peg, it has to be backed by real-world assets. And usually those assets are U.S. Treasury bills.
Government debt.
Right. So you are holding a digital token that ultimately represents U.S. government debt. And Fitz points to recent legislation like the Genius Act and the Clarity Act.
What are those?
These are laws explicitly designed to create the regulatory framework for stablecoins. And what they ensure is that any regulated stablecoin must follow strict trust, know your customer, or KYC, and anti-money laundering rules.
So they have to ID you just like a traditional bank would.
Precisely. Fitz calls this the treasury pipe. Even if the coin is issued by a private company like Circle or Tether, the compliance data flows straight to the U.S. Treasury.
It feeds the exact same surveillance grid.
It creates the illusion of choice.
You think you're opting out of the system.
But you're really just using a private door to enter the exact same room.
And there's an economic cost to this at the local level too, right? If everyone moves their money out of standard banks and into stable coins.
Think about where the money physically goes. If you take your money out of a local community bank or a credit union and you put it into a global stablecoin,
that capital leaves your town entirely.
it goes to Wall Street to buy U.S. Treasuries. It immediately stops funding local small business loans. It stops funding the local bakery or the local builder or the car wash.
It just sucks the life out of Main Street.
It creates a hyper-centralized economy where all capital flows to the center, to the government, and the local economy is completely starved of liquidity. It's a massive extraction machine.
Okay, so we have this incredibly elaborate trap set. The hardware, the ID, the money.
Right.
But how do you actually get people to walk into it? Because people love cash. Cash is private. Cash works when the power goes out. You can't just ban it overnight without a revolt.
You don't ban it. You use nudging.
Nudging.
It's a well-known concept from behavioral economics.
Yeah.
You don't make the alternative illegal. You just make it absolutely miserable to use. You create friction everywhere.
Fitz told a story about her husband in the material that really illustrates this perfectly. It was at a bank branch, right?
Yes, it's Wells Fargo, I believe.
Well,
Her husband went to a local branch to withdraw cash.
a large amount.
It wasn't a suspicious amount, no. He needed it for Christmas bonuses for his employees, Standard business practice. It was his money in his account.
And the bank just said no.
They straight up refused. But you have to notice the specific language they used when they denied him.
They didn't just say they were out of bills.
No, they said, we are doing this for your protection.
Wow.
We are worried you're being scammed. We are worried there might be someone outside with a gun forcing you to make this withdrawal.
They framed the restriction entirely as safety.
It's always framed as safety. He had to fight with them for 2 weeks, escalating up the chain just to get access to his own paper money.
That is nudging in action.
You make the customer feel like a criminal or a helpless victim for simply wanting to use analog systems. You make it so exhausting and inconvenient that eventually they just throw their hands up and say, fine, I'll just use the app.
She also mentioned something a bit darker in this section, neurowarfare.
She did. She argues that the technology we carry around isn't just passive. It is actively designed to addict us.
To keep us engaged.
It's designed to create constant financial instability and low-level fear. When people are hopelessly addicted to screens and terrified of fraud or losing what little they have, they are much easier to herd.
If you are constantly scared of hackers stealing your identity,
You might actually welcome the biometric ID as a secure solution. Please, scan my face so I know my money is safe.
it's manufacturing consent. You intentionally create the problem, rampant cybercrime, and then you turn around and sell the solution. Total surveillance.
And if nudging and manufactured consent don't work fast enough, Fitz argues they will use a crisis.
The shock doctrine.
Exactly. You simply cannot implement a system this radical and invasive during normal, peaceful times. People would push back. You need a massive catalyst.
She points to 9/11 as the precedent for this.
Right. That crisis allowed for the passage of the Patriot Act and the creation of the TSA. These were massive, unprecedented expansions of state surveillance that the public accepted out of fear, and they never went away.
So what's the next crisis? What justifies flipping the switch on the digital control grid?
She speculates it will likely be a severe financial or cyber crisis.
Okay.
Imagine a scenario where the banking system mysteriously goes down. A massive cyber attack freezes the credit card networks and ATMs nationwide.
So suddenly no one can buy food.
Panic sets in immediately. Supply chains halt.
And then, right on cue, the government steps in.
We have a solution. Here is the new FedNow app. Here is your central bank digital wallet. It's perfectly safe. It's secure from hackers. And look, we've already loaded your emergency stimulus relief funds onto it.
Just to help you out.
All you have to do is scan your face to unlock it.
And if your kids are hungry, you aren't going to argue about civil liberties. You're going to stand your face.
You take the wallet, and the moment you take it, the trap snaps shut.
That is a deeply sobering scenario.
It really is.
But we need to look at the financial reality underneath all this maneuvering, because Fitz keeps coming back to this core idea that the current system is already broken.
Mortally wounded.
And they are just trying to hide the damage while they build the new cage. This brings us to FASB 56 and the black budget.
This is the part of her analysis that often gets glossed over by people because, let's face it, it sounds like really boring accounting policy.
It does sound dry.
But Fitz insists it is the absolute smoking gun. FASB 56 stands for the Federal Accounting Standards Advisory Board Statement 56. It was passed quietly in 2018.
And what does it actually do?
It essentially legalized systemic government accounting fraud.
Legalized it.
It is an administrative policy that allows the federal government to officially keep its books secret. It permits federal agencies to move money to, quote-unquote, national security-related vendors without ever disclosing those transactions on the public ledgers.
So if I'm a taxpayer funding all of this, I have literally no right to know where that money went.
Correct. If they deem it a national security issue, the numbers just vanish from the public record.
And we aren't talking about pocket change here.
It's not at all. Fitz and her team at Solari did an exhaustive dive into this. They documented $21 trillion, that's trillion with a T,
21 trillion.
in undocumented adjustment to the Department of Defense and HUD
Between what years?
between 1998 and 2015.
$21 trillion. That is, that's an almost incomprehensible number. That is roughly the size of the entire U.S. national debt at the time.
It's a staggering amount of missing capital.
Okay.
And FASB 56 effectively allows them to retroactively hide where all that money is flowing.
It's a cover-up mechanism.
Fitz argues this mechanism allows the government and its massive private contractors, which includes the big banks, to completely scrub their books.
What's the real-world impact of that?
It renders the official U.S. budget mathematically meaningless, And worse, it renders stock market disclosures completely meaningless.
Meaningless. How does it affect the stock market?
Think about it logically. If a major defense contractor or a massive global bank can receive secret government money that doesn't ever have to appear on their public balance sheet.
Oh.
Or conversely, if they can move massive toxic losses off their balance sheet and hide them in a classified black budget account,
Then the financial statements that you and I see on Yahoo Finance are pure fiction.
the market is fundamentally rigged because the public data is completely incomplete and manipulated.
She called the Exchange Stabilization Fund the mother of all slush funds.
Yes. This fund is located at the New York Fed. It was originally designed back in the day to stabilize the value of the currency in international markets.
But it's morphed into something else.
Fitz argues it has become an impenetrable shield for vast sums of money to move around the globe without any congressional oversight whatsoever.
A shadow financial system.
Her ultimate assessment is that what the central bankers called the going direct reset, which they discussed openly at Jackson Hole in 2019, was really about managing the controlled demolition of this looted system.
So they looted the bank over decades, and now they're burning the building down to hide the evidence.
And concurrently building a digital prison so the depositors, meaning us, the public, can't ever organize and come after them for the stolen funds.
Okay. This brings us to the ultimate question, the why.
The motivation.
We've covered the intricate mechanism of the grid. We know how it works. But we really need to understand the human motivation behind it. Why do this? Why do these quote-unquote elites, who already have all the money and all the power, want to live in a world that looks like a high-tech prison?
Fitz is very clear on this. She says it is not about greed anymore. They already have the money. It's about risk management.
Risk management.
It's about fear.
Fear of what exactly?
Fear of the guillotine. Fear of the crowd.
The French Revolution scenario.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
She describes the central bankers as fundamentally risk managers. That is their core profession. They look at the global math. They see a rapidly growing population. They see shrinking natural resources. And most importantly, they see a massive, unprecedented technological transition occurring.
The tech transition.
Right. We are in a period of radical technological change. AI, advanced robotics, potentially free energy technologies, biotechnology.
Now they're accelerating.
And the elites are absolutely terrified that they will lose their dominant position during this transition.
Because technology is inherently democratizing.
If these new technologies are widely distributed, if everyone suddenly has access to cheap energy and advanced AI, the rigid social hierarchy might collapse.
The mob might actually use the tech to displace them.
Exactly. So they are clamping down preemptively.
They're choosing control over progress.
Fitz phrases it perfectly. She says they chose complete control over explosive, decentralized wealth creation. They would much rather rule over a stagnant, strictly controlled population than risk losing their elite status in a booming, free, unpredictable one.
She used a really interesting psychological term to describe their mindset, hyper-materialists.
Yes. This is a crucial insight into how they view the world. Fitz argues that the modern leadership class has become entirely hyper-materialist.
Meaning what?
They only believe in what they can see, touch, measure, and quantify on a spreadsheet. They do not believe in the spiritual, they don't believe in the invisible, or in natural law.
Someone in the source material said money is their god.
Because money, or power, is the only invisible force they actually respect and acknowledge. And because they view the world strictly through this cold, materialist lens, they view human beings as material resources.
Not as individuals with rights.
No, as inventory, as cattle to be managed.
She said they actually view the general population as a different species.
Yes. There is a profound psychological disconnect. They don't see themselves as part of the same human community as the people they are ruling over. They see the masses as hypocritical, irresponsible consumers who are destroying the planet.
Which justifies, in their minds, the need to herd and control them.
It allows them to morally justify the extraction and the enslavement. It's for the greater good.
She also brought up this idea of the mystery of competence.
Right. Are they evil masterminds, or are they just dangerously incompetent?
Because sometimes it feels like the system is just bumbling from crisis to crisis.
Fitz suggests that they severely lack what she calls a Mandarin class culture.
Like historical China.
Exactly. A country like China has a leadership culture that thinks in terms of centuries. They want to preserve and grow the civilization over the long term.
What about Western elites?
Fitz argues they are acting more like looters. They have no long-term vision for human flourishing. They are simply burning the furniture to keep the house warm for one more night, without giving any thought to where they will sleep tomorrow.
She used the tapeworm analogy to describe this.
That was a very visceral image. She compares the current financial control system to a tapeworm.
It attaches to the host.
It attaches the host, the real economy, the working people, and it just sucks the nutrients out.
And a tapeworm doesn't care if the host is healthy.
As long as it gets fed, it's happy.
Right.
But eventually, if the tapeworm gets too big and extracts too much,
It kills the host.
it kills the host, and therefore it kills itself. She argues they are extracting wealth so aggressively, they are effectively killing the U.S. economy.
Speaking of other countries, we have to talk about the geopolitics of this grid. Because if this is meant to be a global control grid, not everyone is just blindly playing along, right?
This is what she calls the leakage problem.
Leakage.
A control grid only functions effectively if it is a completely closed loop.
No way out.
If there is a place you can go to escape the digital ID, or a sovereign currency you can use outside their system, the pressure in the whole system drops. The prison develops a leak.
And who are the main leaks right now?
On a geopolitical scale, it's Russia, China, and specifically Iran.
Why does she focus on Iran?
Fitz highlights Iran because of the structure of its central bank. It is highly independent.
It's not part of the Western Club.
It is not fully integrated into the BIS, the Western Central Banking System. Plus, they have massive independent energy resources.
So they don't need the West.
She argues that a lot of the geopolitical tension and military posturing we see regarding Iran isn't just about nuclear weapons or terrorism.
Financial.
It's about the fact that they are an independent node. They represent a massive hole in the electronic fence.
So the constant push for war, or crippling sanctions, is really a coordinated push to force them into the global banking grid.
To close the loop.
She also mentioned dual citizenship as part of this leakage dynamic, but for the elites themselves.
Right. She talks about the secret governance system.
What's that?
It's the idea that these actors operate entirely above national laws. Dual citizenship acts as a mechanism for them to flee or move massive amounts of capital without accountability.
An escape hatch.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If the host country collapses, they just move to Israel or New Zealand or other safe havens to avoid prosecution.
I want to pivot back down to a specific case study she mentioned, because I think it really helps visualize the brutal economic model underlying all of this.
The private prison model.
The Dylan Reed story.
Yes. This is essentially the working template for the entire world they are trying to build. Fitz studied this extensively during her career. She breaks it down into a very cold business model.
How does it actually work step by step?
Step 1. You privatize the local prison. You turn it into a for-profit corporation.
And then the stock trades on the open market.
Right. And the value of that stock is entirely based on per-bed occupancy.
Meaning the incentive is always to have more prisoners?
The business literally needs bodies in cells to generate shareholder value. So step 2, you lobby to pass laws to increase sentences.
Mandatory minimums, 3 strikes laws.
You mathematically ensure the beds stay full. Step 3, you actively target the vulnerable population, often youth, often minorities, to fill those beds.
And she implied something really dark here, that the same networks arresting the kids might actually be involved in importing the drugs that get them arrested in the first place.
That is the closed-loop implication she makes. It's a completely vertical integration of crime and punishment.
And then what's step 4?
Step 4 is prison labor, unicore. You use the captive prisoners to work for pennies on the dollar, manufacturing goods that then compete with free labor on the outside.
So it is quite literally a slavery system.
It is a reinstated slavery system that looks on paper like a brilliant stock market success story.
And Fitz's argument is that the digital control grid is just this exact model.
Applied to the entire general population.
The whole world becomes the private prison.
You are the resource.
Yeah.
Your behavioral data is the resource. Your localized labor is the resource.
And the programmable currency enforces the occupancy.
You are geofenced into your 15-minute zone, locked down by your digital wallet, just like a prisoner is locked in a cell block. And the elites simply collect the rent on your existence.
That is just an incredibly heavy, dark picture to paint.
It's bleak.
But here's the thing that really surprised me at the end of all this material. After laying out this airtight, horrifying dystopian reality, Fitz isn't depressed.
She's remarkably optimistic.
She actually sounds excited, and her optimism comes from a very interesting, almost unexpected place.
She calls this current era the year of the fire horse.
The fire horse. What does that mean?
It's a reference to the Chinese zodiac. It represents a time of intense chaos and disruption, yes, but also immense raw energy.
A time for breaking old things and building new things?
Exactly. She believes that the elites, for all their wealth and power, have a fatal flaw in their grand plan.
What's the flaw?
Their hyper-materialism. They are desperately trying to build a perfectly closed, rigid, mechanical control grid.
Right, a machine.
But they are trying to impose that machine onto a universe that is fundamentally an open, living, dynamic system.
She talks about plasma science in the source material.
Right, the idea that the universe is alive and inherently intelligent.
This got a little metaphysical for a finance report, but I think the core point was that nature inherently hates a cage.
Exactly. You cannot control a complex living system with a rigid spreadsheet forever. It will inevitably revolt.
It will find a leak.
It will adapt and find a way around the barrier. She profoundly believes that the control grid is destined to fail because it violates the fundamental laws of nature.
But her point wasn't just to sit back and wait for it to collapse.
No, not at all. We have to actively help it fail.
She gave a very specific list of what she calls coming clean. Actionable steps for the individual.
Yes. This isn't just a theoretical exercise. It's a practical to-do list for resistance.
Step 1 was simple. Use cash.
Use it or lose it. Every single transaction you make with physical cash is a direct vote for privacy and freedom.
It keeps the analog infrastructure alive.
It keeps the local armored car companies in business. It keeps the bank tellers employed. It creates friction against the digital rollout.
Step 2, bank local.
This is huge. Get your money out of the too-big-to-fail banks. The mega banks are the exact institutions building the control grid.
Right.
Move your capital to local community banks and credit unions. These are the institutions that actually lend to local businesses. They keep the money circulating in your own zip code.
Step 3 was stop funding the enemy.
Look at your investment portfolio. Don't buy stock in the tech companies building the surveillance apparatus.
That's from the grid.
Don't shop at the massive big box stores that aggressively use facial recognition and crush local competitors. Look closely at who you are giving your financial energy to.
And step 4, digital detox.
Remove the tapeworm. Get off the glowing screens. Stop the doom-scrolling addiction.
Because the system relies on you being distracted.
Distracted, anxious, and constantly glued to your phone. If you reclaim your attention, you fundamentally reclaim your power.
She also talked about spiritual defense, which I thought was fascinating, the blue light.
That was a really beautiful note to end her analysis on. She emphasizes that in a time of engineered chaos, your absolute best protection is your own integrity.
She had a great quote, "Don't worry about the bad guys, worry about getting in good with the good guys."
Meaning, seek divine protection. Align yourself with natural law.
She also said we need to build a culture.
Yes. She argues that true lasting order in a society comes from internal culture art, classical music, strong faith, community bonds.
Because if you have a high culture, people govern themselves.
Exactly. They have internal morality. They don't need a high-tech police state to force them to behave. So, enjoying a beautiful painting or listening to great music
is actually an act of rebellion.
It's an act of profound resistance. It reminds you that you are a divine human being, not just a data point on a central bank ledger.
So where does this ultimately leave us? The digital control grid is real.
It's very real, and it is snapping into place right now.
It's a convergence of surveillance, finance, and physical control, explicitly designed to bypass democracy.
But is absolutely not inevitable.
It requires our participation to function.
It requires us to say yes to their convenience. If we say no, if we insist on using cash, if we painstakingly build parallel systems, if we support each other locally,
a grid cannot close around us.
It's a fundamental battle between a cold machine and the human spirit.
And Fitz is betting heavily on the human spirit. The provocative question she leaves us with, the thing to really chew on after you turn this off, is this.
What is it?
If the universe is a living system that will eventually tear this unnatural cage apart, what are you actively building today to replace their system when it crumbles?
That is the real challenge for the Firehorse here. Don't just spend all your energy fighting the old machine. Start building the new reality.
I think that's the perfect place to leave it.
Stay curious, everyone.
Thanks for diving deep with us. We'll see you next time.